It's tea time, positive tea time, and we are spilling all of it right here in this space created by two crazy, fun-loving besties. It's a no-judgment zone for sharing stories of hope, faith, love, growth, and most of all, grace and gratitude. So join us as we get ready to share some positivity and get a fresh perspective on life.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Spilling the Positivity. I'm Natasha and Maria, and today we are so excited because we have a really special guest. She is Nikita Gibson. She's an actuary, and she also has a blog called my2cents.bb, and we're excited to talk to her because she's going to tell us all about turning a negative financial situation into a positive, and anything that we can know that is positive about money and finance. She is a boss. Nikita, welcome.
Welcome, Nikita.
Thank you for having me, ladies.
We're so happy to have you. So we're talking about finances. We know that prices are going up. COVID has impacted our finances. Some people have not been working, and it does weigh on your mindset and your mental well-being, etc. So tell us, let's just start that conversation first with you. How did you get into financial planning and loving to take care of people's money so much? Tell us about that.
Well, it's one of those things that just kind of happened. So for starters, I think that the start of the pandemic, it really showed us that a lot of people were struggling. You know, a lot of people did not have the financial means to be able to sustain themselves without a job for even just a month. You know, you would like to think that people were able to sustain themselves for a couple months, but a lot of people work paycheck to paycheck. So during the pandemic, seeing the government doing all the hampers and packaging, I'm also a member of the Rotary Club of Barbados. So, you know, I was a part of the front line, packing those boxes, packing those bags, and just seeing that really bothered me that there's so many people in this predicament at the moment. So I wanted to start something where I can just share information, and it's just knowledge that I've either experienced personally or just through my work experience. I've been able to just gather a wealth of knowledge on finances, financial planning, and I wanted to share. That's simply it. Everybody can't afford a financial planner, you know, or a financial advisor. And everybody thinks that when you have a financial planner or advisor, it means you have to have a lot of money.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
It's the same way people think about investing. You know, to invest, that means I have to have thousands of dollars. No, you just need to have the minimum amount.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting because you're right. A lot of people think you have to have a lot of money in order to, you know, invest in anything, whether it's cryptocurrency. I don't know how much you know about that, NFTs and stocks, bonds. What is the bare minimum? What do you have to do to even think about investing? And before we even get there, let's talk about savings.
Yes, that's a big one, yeah.
Because, you know, as you said, people don't, like my grandmother or my grandfather used to say, even if you save $1 a day, that save something. But I don't think my generation subscribe to that.
Yeah, so that's the first challenge. I always tell people, before you jump into investing, make sure you have a financial plan and a budget that works for you. So, you know, so you don't want to necessarily take up money that you probably do need otherwise to put into investing. So, you know, get your usual, you get you know, as they say, you're adult, you're accustomed, you know how much money comes in, you know what you need to pay every month, you know what your expenses are.
Yeah.
So after you've done all of that, what's your net income like? What's left?
Right.
You know, and then
what
based
is
on
net
that,
income? What does that mean for some people out there who may not understand that technical term?
No problem. So your disposable income is just basically, or your net income is just income after
You pay all the bills.
you pay all your bills, you pay your taxes, you pay NIS.
Yeah.
And just so it's clear, pay your bills. I'm not just talking about your utility bills, etc. You know, it's hair done, nails done. All of those are expenses.
Yeah,
So how much is left after you've done everything?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You know?
There's something that you said that I wanted to, and someone actually, when I told them we were doing this segment, said, what about retail therapy? Because with the world being so difficult and having so many challenges, I feel that a bill that needs to be paid now is for me to go and have a nice dinner, for me to go and get my nails done, go and buy a nice dress, because it feels like the world is coming down on you, and that gives you a relief, a soothing. Is that, how do you think about that? What do you think about that in terms of finances?
Right. So I'll tell you what I personally do and what I encourage persons to do. building a financial budget or financially planning is not about you cutting your nose and spoiling your features and every day you eating sardines or tuna, right? I mean, if that's what you love, that's what you love.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's also about comfort, because financial planning, you still have to live.
Yes.
And finding that balance is always very important. So me personally, every month I pay all my bills. I set aside, I pay myself as well. That's also included in my expenses every month.
Yeah, yeah.
So every month I say, well, Nikita, this is your money for the month, you know, and I pay myself different things. I pay myself for savings, and I pay myself for whether I'm going out for drinks, going out for dinner, or going to the movies. You know, and some months are different. You know, you might have a few extra bills. The month you have your car insurance or your home insurance, you might not be able to wine and dine as much that month. So I might opt, okay, well, I'll just set aside this money and I'll go to the movies this month, and that's my social outing. So all of that is a part of setting your budget. It's not about you, okay, I can't spend any money at all. I can only pay bills. I can only pay for loans. That's not what it's about.
Right.
You know, being able to incorporate life into your financial planning is very important. And that leads to, you know, the mental state as well, which you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah. What about those persons who work and are paid weekly? And, you know, and I really empathize as well, too, for those single mothers who have to manage everything on their own. Do you think there is a space for them? And what kind of savings plan could they start? I know people talk about susus and meeting turns and all that kind of stuff.
So I'll tell you two things on that, right? Regardless of what or how you're paid, whether it's monthly, daily, weekly, whatever, the reality is that you can save. Okay. And the amount is what is going to be different for everybody. It's based on what your salary is. So creating a financial budget is all about being realistic. You know, if you know, for example, I have persons, sometimes I meet with them one-on-one, they want to save $36,000 by the end of the year, but your gross salary is $3,000. How are you going to save $36,000 by the end of the year? Or are you trying to tell me you have passive income or a side hustle or whatever the case may be? So setting realistic goals is the first step. Because if your goal is unrealistic and you don't meet it, you'll find you become very dejected. You don't want to save anymore. What's the point? It will take too long. We just went through a pandemic for 2 years. I don't know about any of you guys, but everybody can pretty much remember what they did the Christmas before the pandemic. You wouldn't have realized how quickly that time went by, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So had you been saving X amount over the last 2 years, that 2 years went by so quickly, it would have just, you know, you have it now. You know, so we need to, it's just about creating habits, to be quite honest. It's not about trying to just rush and get there. That's the problem. So when it comes to single mothers or persons who might work weekly, the same applies to you, but you have to know what amount you can afford to save or set aside. You know, the person who might be making $10,000 a month, they might be able to save $1,000 a month. You know, you might be making minimum wage, so you might only be able to set aside $50 a week. You know, or $50 a month. But either way, that's going to add up eventually, and that's the key, and that's what a lot of people miss. Now, the second side to that, though, you'll be very surprised how many people, and you know, I sit down with all persons from across different professions, right? And persons, you know, making different sets of salaries. And you will be surprised sometimes that the persons you least expect have the most savings than the person who's making $10,000 or $15,000 a month. You wanna know why? Because they've built the habit over years. You know, unlike that person who's making $15,000 a month, they had to save. If not, they wouldn't have been able to do anything. So for them, they're such creatures of habit now that you'll be surprised how many people have thousands of dollars sitting in the credit union, sitting in the bank, you know, and they're not, you know, the higher socioeconomic brackets, but they have more savings than some of the middle income earners, believe it or not. Which is, you know, testament to a little bit goes a very long way. I always remind people, you know, my grandmother didn't have a credit union or bank account, but anytime I went to her, she would always reach into her bra. She always had it.
You know, for this little berry.
Right? And to this day, I am yet to get to the point where I could pull money out my bra. But somehow they managed, right? And it's
True.
piece by piece, no matter how small the piece is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what do you say to those people who, like, for somebody who may have found themselves in a difficult situation, struggling and trying to get out of a hole and feel like there's no way out because it's just like one thing after another after
one
another.
bill after the next, after the next. I can't see the sunlight anymore.
And that's where the depression and the sadness, and so it's like you said, they're like, why bother?
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
So every situation is different. So whether you're someone who is bogged down because of debt, for example, or just simply meeting everyday needs, you know, buying groceries or paying for rent or whatever the case may be. And we've all been in those situations. I remember personally going through months at the start of my career that after I finished, paid my rent, bought groceries, paid the utilities, I had $100 left.
Wow.
And it was just the start of the month because today was payday.
Yes, right.
You know, today was payday.
Right.
You paid for everything, you bought everything, $100 left.
And that has to run you for the next
the next-
25
for the
or
next-
30 days.
Correct. You know,
Yeah.
and I remember just sitting there and just feeling like, so what am I going to do? At least I have food because I
Right.
bought the groceries.
Right.
At least the bills are paid, so the water, electricity are not going to be turned off.
Yeah.
But then I didn't have a TV, didn't have
Cable,
anything.
Yeah.
All I had was internet. So I would set up my work laptop and I will watch everything on there.
Yeah.
You know, and the bare minimums. And to be quite honest, it really was daunting and depressing. There were some times I would be like, I wish I could just go out for a meal, or I can just go and just have a drink. But you literally watch every penny.
Yeah.
And that $100 had to get me to the next 25 or 30 days. And honestly, it's really tough. But I could tell you or share with you how I was able to do that. I made changes for me, and everybody's situation is different. So for example, I moved back home.
Yeah. Yeah.
I moved back into my family home. Everyone can't do that.
Right.
You know, there are different reasons why people rent. You might have, I didn't have any children, so it was easy for me to transition back to the family home. I changed vehicles to something that was more affordable, you know, smaller, less payments, less gas for sure, you know, especially now.
Yeah.
And I started to make some adjustments so that it didn't free up all the money I wanted, but it freed up enough that I felt like I could
breathe.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's important.
Yes.
You know, as much as we like to think that, you know, there's absolutely nothing that we can do, I already lived the bare minimum. You'll be surprised sometimes when you sit down and write out all the things that you spend money on, that you realize, okay, I could do without this for this month, and that saves me $50.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you guys are looking fabulous today. You have all your
And you
beautiful
too.
lashes.
So do
Yeah.
you.
Right?
Yeah.
Lashes was one of the things I stopped
Yes.
during COVID.
COVID.
You know,
Yes.
no one was seeing me. I guess now I should probably start back.
You choose to.
You know, but at the end of the day, it's just about making those choices.
Yeah.
And again, every situation is different. And I know that there are some people who they literally just do the bare minimum at the moment, you know, and they're still finding it hard.
Right.
So then you need to look for the next step. How can I make more money? Because right now I don't have any discretionary expenses that I can cut.
Yeah.
You know, everything that I have are things I need or I have to because of, you know, debt obligations, etc.
Right.
And a lot of people, and I am very disheartened sometimes when I hear about some financial institutions that are lending money to people that they know cannot
afford,
pay.
yeah.
They can't.
Not
you
doing
know?
their due diligence.
They're not. And sometimes when I sit down with persons and they tell me, and it's the simplest things, you know, there are a lot of these places that have popped up, you know, and they all seem good because you get the money quickly.
Yeah.
You get and without too much questions and too much due diligence, and you don't have to wait for a big long approval from a bank or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I've dealt with so many persons who've used a lot of these companies and they end up getting these loans. The interest rates are significantly higher than the credit union or the banks, right? And then they end up not being able to afford it. I remember just being on the phone with someone and she's in tears about her situation. I had to get on the phone with the company and said, but look, what you guys are, the amount that she agreed to pay is not what you guys are requiring her to pay now. So what's the issue here? And you will realize sometimes that it's just because people don't know any better. I find that some companies take advantage of that and put them in a situation where they're indebted to them for life.
Wow.
And I'm like, but,
Yeah.
you know, and I went on the phone with her. I said, I have so-and-so on the phone.
Yeah.
She can confirm that I have the, that you can share the information with me.
Yeah, yeah.
And based on everything that she has shared, the amount that she's currently paying for this loan is inaccurate. It should actually be X.
Yeah.
Can you kindly check your records to confirm
Yeah.
what exactly is causing the discrepancy?
So advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. So you can actually just go back and say, listen, this calculation may be wrong, but advocate for what is right for yourself.
And what you agreed to begin with.
Yeah, and what you
Yeah.
can afford as well
Yeah.
in
You know?
certain cases. And how in your opinion, is it possible when you are feeling, okay, so you feel you have all these bills and you do want to create some space for some of your goals. You might want to purchase a home. How do you start that process of beginning that journey?
Oh, that's pretty easy. To me, regardless of what your goals are, you should have a plan.
Right.
Okay.
And, you know, we've been talking a lot about, you know, not feeling overwhelmed. Key step there. If you plan it out, you will realize that it's not as overwhelming.
Yeah.
But what people are overwhelmed by is when they see the numbers.
Yes.
You know, that's where people are like, oh my gosh, you know, I need X amount for legal fees, or oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I only make this amount of money, but I'm trying to save this amount. How am I
Yeah.
really going to reach there? But believe it or not, seeing those numbers is what helps, right? So the first step is identifying what that goal is. You know, when do you want to achieve it? What's the timeline?
Right.
How much does it cost you? Right? And of your disposable income, how much do you have that you can set aside for this goal? You know, and that also helps to drive your timeline. So, you know, persons who might be looking to purchase a piece of land now, you know, legal fees might be between $3,000, $6,000, depending on the size of the land, obviously going up from there.
Yeah.
Right.
If you know you're trying to save, you know, $2,400 towards legal fees, do my disposable income currently allow me to set aside, you know, $200 a month for the next year? Or do I have to stretch that and put it to 2 years? So is it now $100?
Yeah.
You know, and you have to decide that. And it goes back to the point, reasonable timelines, reasonable amounts, make them realistic,
Realistic,
and then
yes.
go forward from there, you know, and just plan accordingly. Always know where your money is at any given time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
important.
Always.
Hashtag that.
Yes.
Know your money. Know the location of your money.
Know where your money is. Correct.
Yeah.
You know?
And what about this situation of an emergency fund? Because I heard a lot of people saying, you know, COVID has taught me I have to put aside some money for an emergency illness. Something happens in the house. And, you know, during COVID, I recognized I didn't have emergency funds. So how do you go about creating that? And is that really necessary to have an emergency fund?
Oh, yes, most definitely. That's something that I have been particularly advocating for within the last 2 years of COVID, and just trying to get people to realize the importance of it. And, you know, COVID did bring some good. And
Yes.
we know about the
Yes.
bad, but we're not
Yeah.
talking about the bad right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And the good is that you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And you also stayed in a lot. You had your disposable income probably was increased because you didn't go out as often and all that too.
But a lot of people are saying, you know, they spent more money on electricity and food
Oh, that's
because the
true.
children were home
That's
and they were
true.
home.
That's true.
However,
That's true.
every time they say that, I challenge you. I say, but you've paid less in gas to go to work, right? You've bought less lunch being
Yes.
out because you were at home for most persons, right? And then you didn't go as much, so there wasn't crop over for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, we did not have our makeup done. We didn't have to
That's
buy
right.
outfits, tickets, costumes, nothing.
Yeah.
But all that is money that we would have found during those 2 years if those things had occurred. So
Yeah.
that's money that you could have set aside. I went as far as telling people, you couldn't get out for sauce during the first couple of lockdowns.
Yes, you could.
So they just set
Take
aside
that
the
sauce
sauce money.
money.
Yes,
you know?
$25 or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. So an emergency fund is critical. And I think we've learned that lesson the hard way.
Yeah.
And what it really is exactly what it sounds like. It is money you set aside in case of an emergency. This is the money where you break the glass. I need it now.
Yes.
Something has happened. Must get this money.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I encourage persons to try to reach towards an emergency fund that is at least 6 months of their gross salary.
Okay.
If you get to 6 months, go further and do it for 12 months. And there's a kind of rationale behind that.
Yeah. Okay.
On average, it takes persons about 6 months to find another job.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And in this current climate, it's taking people a lot longer.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah.
imagine that, right? So I said, well, 6 months is the target. But that doesn't mean that you're trying to get that 6 months now.
Okay.
If you're now starting your emergency fund, decide, okay, by the end of this year, I want to have 1 month of gross salary. I mean, some people tell you to just try to get your net salary, but the gross gives you a little extra buffer,
yeah.
right? You know?
Yeah.
So you aim for that. So by the end of the year, I'm going to try to get 1 month of my salary in an account somewhere.
Yeah.
And you achieve that goal. Okay, great. At the end of the year, you have your first month. You know, so if anything happens in the next year, you have a month's salary that you can always draw on, right?
Yeah.
And then next year, nothing happens. So you continue to save. You add on the next month. So now you're up to 2 months.
What about those people that say, wait, I got $10,000 saved? This is an opportunity now for me to go on a trip or, you know, do something because life is short and I don't know what will happen tomorrow.
You only live once, right?
Yeah. YOLO. Yeah.
Well, I always tell people it's just about creating habits and behaviors. So when you want to travel, how much does it cost?
Yeah.
Ticket, hotel, shopping, whatever. What's the
You
total
gotta
bill?
break everything down.
Yeah.
Correct. So what's my total? When do I want to travel? Okay, how much money do I need to set aside to reach that goal? Probably want to buy the tickets maybe 4 or 5 months before the trip.
Yeah.
So you want to
Yeah,
split out
that's
the
the
money
money, yeah.
before then, right?
Yes, yeah,
Good. It doesn't matter what that goal is. That goal could be travel. That goal could be land. Could be a house, could be a car, could be education.
Yeah.
It could be towards a business. It does
Right.
not matter what the goal is. The steps are the same.
Yeah.
How much, timeline, and what do I need to set aside to reach that goal? And once you just apply those things, you'll be able to do it. So I always tell myself for travel, for example, one of the things that I personally started doing is not just setting aside money for travel, but anytime I make investments, I might do some short-term investments. And whatever those investments earn me are my travel money. So my travel money does not come from my salary, for example. You know,
Right.
and if those types of investments are things that you can do with ease, then that way that's one expense that you don't have to look for because your money is working for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Type
Yeah.
of investments.
Yeah,
What do you mean?
what do you
say
mean?
investments? I mean,
You say
because now
small,
you've gone now from saving, putting aside to investing. And the minute you say investing, people are like, I ain't know nothing about stocks and
Bonds and all that, yeah.
or whatever else. So, you know, what does that mean and what is the return on that? So like, okay, I'm saving towards X and I'm going to use my investment. If I invest last year, am I getting back that investment this year? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, well, it varies. And before anybody starts to invest, I always encourage people, educate yourself first. That's important. Whether or not you're the one managing your portfolio or not, educate yourself. Try to understand the basics of what you're getting involved in. If you don't understand it, don't put your money in it. You know, spend the time. So apart from doing that, there are so many different investments that are out there. And people think, oh, I gotta have $10,000
Yes,
to
people
start,
do
or
think
I
that.
have to have $30,000 to start. That's not it. So, you know, investing is all about just finding the right vehicle for you. You know, there are so many options in Barbados, so many financial institutions. You can invest in various mutual funds or stocks, etc. And, you know, just be able to make that sound decision for yourself.
Yeah.
And stop thinking that you need thousands of dollars in order to invest. You know, and it could be as simple as investing in yourself, and a lot of people miss that. You can start a little side hustle. You know, and that is actually investing.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
you're
very true.
making that money work for you.
And it could be something you're passionate about. Could be like you're into designing, you're into cake making, you're into something that a hobby that you can make into an investment. Yeah.
And spot on. And what a lot of people are now doing, and you know, coming out of the most recent budget is, you know, renewable energy, for example. You know, maybe now's the time to put a couple panels on the roof. You already have the house. You're already paying the mortgage for the house, so why not let the house work for you?
Right.
You know, it's not just about putting panels on so you don't have to pay the electricity bill. That's one side of it. So if you do that, I hope you're setting aside the money from the electricity bill now because you don't need it,
That's
right?
an investment right there.
There you go. But then on top of that, if your house can manage the additional panels, put additional panels, and now that is energy that you're generating and making income outside of the energy that's needed to run your house. And that's another very easy way, and that doesn't require much from you. Obviously the initial investment, but the panels pay for themselves within a certain amount of years, and you get automatic savings from not having to pay a utility bill.
Yeah.
You know?
That's very true.
Yeah, that's
and I think before we wrap up, because this has been great, but we have to start wrapping. But one of the things I just want you to reiterate to people, because people get so depressed and down when they find themselves in a financial bind. Just tell people they don't have to be. It's not the end of the world. They don't have to be daunted by a situation.
Yeah. So that's very important. When you find yourself in those situations, first of all, stop. Because obviously decisions that you've been making financially are not working. Something's wrong. Just put a pause on everything. One of the things that people do when they find themselves in a financial bind is that they avoid the persons they owe money to. The banks, the credit unions, whatever the case may be. Don't do that either. Have a conversation. Pick up the phone, go in and say, well, look, I've lost my job, or a family member is ill and I've had to divert funds for that, however the case may be. And sometimes you will be very surprised their reaction to your plight or situation. Of course, they still want their money back. Right. However, they might opt to restructure. They might opt to, they just went through the period of COVID where they give persons moratoriums. Have that conversation and don't avoid, because the more you avoid, the worse the situation gets. The more daunting and negative you feel. Right. So that's the first thing. Have that conversation and then work out a plan for moving forward. And you'll be surprised that they will actually help you working out that plan. Okay, so, sometimes they ask you, so how much can you afford then? But when you just disappear, you stop taking calls, you stop making payments, that just makes the situation worse. And the last thing you want to do then, you're not making money, you're daunted by that. Let's say it's a mortgage, you have to pay it. The last thing you want on your mind is, oh my God, I'm going to lose my house.
Right.
So avoid that and start having conversations early. And sometimes you have to plan, a few steps ahead. So they put you on a plan, they've reduced the amount you have to pay monthly. But what if I still can't afford that in a few months' time if something happens? What
is the next
steps?
Yeah.
Do I need to sell my home? And if that is the case, now I need to start thinking about, okay, would it make more sense for me to rent out my home?
Right.
Maybe that will bring in enough income to pay the mortgage. Is there a family home I can move into temporarily? Or maybe rent out my home and maybe find a smaller place to rent.
Right.
A much affordable or manageable. Persons automatically go into, oh my God.
Worst case scenario. Worst case scenario. Your mind, it starts to work.
And all it really takes is stop, take a breath, and just plan. Have some conversations, reach out and find out what's possible. Reach out and find out, okay, and sometimes you just need to think outside the box. A lot of people don't think about that. When I first built my house, I made a contingency plan. If something were to happen, to lose my job, yes, I would be able to pay my mortgage for a few months because I have my emergency fund. But apart from that, after that period, and I couldn't find a job, what would I do? And I made up my mind then and there. Okay, Nikita, so you have a nice home here. You can rent it out. You can rent it out fully furnished, so you wouldn't have to consider packing away the furniture or putting it in storage. I can rent it out fully furnished. That should be able to cover all or most of the mortgage. I'll move back home. My mom is always willing to let me know that my room is here still. Or I decided for myself, I don't have any kids, but maybe I just get a 1-bedroom somewhere and rent. That'll be much cheaper. And I had that contingency plan in place from the time I made the decision that I was going to build a house and I was going to get a mortgage. And we just need to be able to think outside the box sometimes. It doesn't always mean we're going to lose our home or this is the end of the world. So
Well, Nikita, thank you so much. You have been positively great with the information. Key takeaways: plan. emergency fund,
funds, yeah.
you know, the possibility of investing and thinking outside of the box.
Yes.
So we've learned a lot, and we're so happy that you joined us.
Thank you very much, ladies, for having me. It's been quite the pleasure.
You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us on this episode. We hope you learned so much about how to change that negative financial situation into a positive, and we look forward to seeing you at our next episode. Stay safe and stay healthy.